The energy now is tense, it's rampant, it's a little bit chaotic. It's the perfect climate for creating whole new timelines and completely destroying old ones, while re-establishing true destiny back on the earth planes. My name is Solarah, and I am here to do your full moon in Sagittarius TAROTSTROLOGY Ascension Report. I hope that, you're finding your way through these energies right now, because they've been crunk, right? We're going to get into all of that. For those of you who are new in these here parts, I have developed a system that I call TAROTSTROLOGY. And I look at the astrological chart every lunation, every new and full moon, and I break down the astrological energies utilizing tarot numerology as well as channeling. I channel the planets and the luminaries. So every 2 weeks I'm on here and I discern the energies that way. So I'm not a classic astrologer. I'm not classically trained. I haven't learned that discipline in this lifetime. I like to joke. So if you are a stickler for astrology being fed to you a certain way or certain terminology, then I might not be the one for you. Okay. I do swear. Fuck is one of my favorite words. It helps me to feel very grounded in myself and my frequency. If that is a problem, then you do what you need to do to handle it for yourself. Okay, without feeling that you have to say anything in this environment, because I've already, pre-warned you. And let's get into it. So, yes. The sun and the moon met about 12 hours ago, and the moon reached her peak, her fullness, at 20 degrees Sagittarius, while the sun was transiting through the 20th degree of Gemini. So we have 2020 energy. And I was speaking about this moon on my other channel, Solarah Speaks, a few days ago, and I wrongfully said it was a 1010 moon. So my apologies for that. It's a 2020 moon, a 2020 mood and moon. Well, that wasn't intentional, but maybe it was. Maybe there's a purpose in it, because it's funny that now that I look at this chart, it's my first time looking at it, in terms of sitting down to do anything and to talk about it. I actually have not opened the chart until like a few minutes before I hit record. And what's really interesting about this is, now that I'm paying proper attention to it, this 2020 theme, there's been a lot coming up from the 2020 timelines in the past couple of weeks that I've noticed. I didn't really put it all together until seeing the numbers now, but I do know that, like, even just in conversing with clients and friends, everyday kind of conversations, a lot of 2020 themes, stories, experiences have been coming up. So it's really interesting that we have this 2020 energy here, because maybe we are completing something, some kind of 5-year cycle is coming to a close through this full moon also. Maybe more on a personal level for some of you, and maybe on the collective front also too. So the sun, let's get into, breaking this all down. The sun in Gemini at 20 degrees. So whenever the sun enters into Gemini, which is the last sign in the first quarter of the zodiac wheel, if we break the zodiac down into quarters, we have the first quarter is Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. And I like to say the first quarter of the zodiac wheel is where we begin a new story. It's where, through Aries, we begin to connect with a new story, the story that we are going to be living out for the next 12-month cycle, right? So it's through Aries we begin to access who we're choosing to be. Like, so you are supposed to be the main character in your story, and Aries is kind of like your pen as an author to decide who you're going to be in accordance with the truth of who you actually are divinely. So what Aries does is it gives you the keys to begin to connect with that truth, that sovereign divine truth. And then through Taurus, you begin to connect with all of the resources that you have internally that are at your disposal to unlock, to begin to realize the truth of who you are. And by the time you get to Gemini, it's crunch time. It's like, well, you've had these first 2 months really to kind of start connecting with a higher truth concerning yourself. And you've even had the opportunity to begin to see the wealth internally that you have to be able to rise. So now, like Gemini's like, it's time to make a decision. Are you going to allow your mind to expand enough to actually accept and to anchor in the truth of what it is you've connected to so that you can actualize it? Or are you going to decide it's too much and revert back to the old story, right? So the thing about Gemini is because it's here to expand you, especially expand you in the mental planes, expand your mental body so you can hold a bigger story, so you can hold the resources that are necessary to make that story real. Because Gemini's here to expand you, to allow for you to do that. It's also a sign that can be very challenging because it pushes you deeper into your greatness. And it's only challenging if you have resistance to being great. It's only challenging if you have resistance to being great. And we all do. We all do in different ways, not because that's our natural propensity, but because that's what we were programmed into. And we are undoing all of that layer by layer. And when we get to Gemini, it's crunch time. Are you going to accept your greatness? And are you going to align your mind and your mental body to expand, to accept this new level of greatness? Or are you going to contract, constrict, and shrink and go back to the old story because it's more comfortable, it's more familiar, it's more predictable, or because you think it's what you deserve? So many different reasons, right? So what's interesting about today's full moon with the sun being in Gemini at 20 degrees is, like I said, Gemini is where you come to make a decision. And that's often the case with the mutable signs. There's a point of reckoning that they put us in this place where we have to do some reckoning with our souls because they're the doorway into something else. So Gemini closes and it's the doorway into the next quarter, which will be all about the calibration of your emotional body to hold what it is that you've allowed through the first 3 zodiac signs also. And then when you get to Virgo, you get to the halfway point of the zodiac wheel, and it's a real reckoning with self, because now you're getting ready to go out into the second half of the zodiac wheel where you start to share your energy and interact with others based upon the lessons you've accrued from the first 6 signs of the zodiac and how you've done in those lessons. So I say this to say that every single mutable sign, every single point of reckoning, it occurs very often through the mutable signs. Okay, there's points of reckoning throughout, of course, but very, very pronounced through Gemini, through Virgo, through Sagittarius, and through Pisces, which is what we would call the mutable cross. And that's because they're all endings. In some ways, the mutable energy is an end. It's the same way in the degrees. The first 10 degrees of the first 10 degrees of a sign tend to deal with cardinal energy. The next 10 degrees are fixed energies, like fixed signs, and the final 10 degrees are mutable energies in the same way that the actual zodiac wheel is. It kickstarts with cardinal, fixed, mutable, cardinal, fixed, mutable, cardinal, fixed, mutable, then cardinal, fixed, mutable. So when you get to mutable, you're at a point of decision, a point of reckoning, a point of a checkpoint. Okay, so Gemini is already a very powerful checkpoint energy, and it's a checking of the mind. Okay, a checking of the mind very specifically. And okay, and we're dealing with the 20-degree mark. So let's talk about what that is. Okay, so 20, astrologically speaking, it connects us to the Judgment card in the tarot, which is the card that is actually ruled by Pluto, but also connects us to Scorpio. And 20 degrees as a degree, astrologically speaking, is a Scorpio degree. So we've got a lot of Scorpionic energy and themes operating through today's full moon because of the 2020 theme. Okay, so what are the Scorpionic themes? It's really interesting because I wasn't actually aware that the full moon today was at a Scorpio degree. And for those of you who are my Opal, Larimar, and Jade members on my platform Solarah.xyz, then you'll know that I was writing about the Scorpio moon over the weekend, right, for Moonrise Musings. And to catch some of you guys up, I was writing Moonrise Musings is, my take on the energy. Like if I write in accordance with the nighttime energies, or sometimes I'll do a sunrise salutation where I write in accordance with what I'm picking up through the solar energies. So I wrote very late on both Saturday and Sunday night. And on Saturday night, I was looking at the moon and I noticed how pink she was, and she was very full already, but she had this beautiful rose hue. And I caught her looking like that on both Saturday and Sunday night. And that inspired me before I sat down to write to actually pull up the chart of where everything was at that moment. Very specifically, I wanted to see where the moon was. Now, the first night I did that on Saturday night, I opened the chart and boom, she's at 11 degrees Scorpio. And I'm like, ooh, master degree. I love it when I open the chart and the moon is just at 11 degrees, because she, like, out of all of the astrological placements, the moon is what moves the most rapidly. So to catch her at the master degree, I just was like, oh, this is wonderful, right? And then on Sunday night, I was sitting down again to do a moonrise musing, and I just had sat down and gazed at the moon. And again, she was like clear in the sky, and she was beautiful, and she was even closer, and she was this beautiful rose hue. So again, I'm inspired to go and see, well, where are you in the astrological chart? Not the astronomical, like where she actually is, but where she is astrologically speaking. So I pulled up the chart, and there she is at 22 degrees. The other master degree, and I'm just like, no, this is not a coincidence. Scorpio, you are speaking, and you're speaking loudly right now. And so the last full moon we've had, of course, the last full moon was Scorpio. So this is the first full moon we're having since that full moon. And so when the moon was in Scorpio this past weekend, that's the first time she's returned into the sign since she was there for the full moon last month. And so she's coming through Scorpio and she's waxing towards her fullness again, this time in Sagittarius. So a lot of the themes from the Scorpio full moon, they were coming back around also for a check. But what I was really noticing, because this weekend was really, really heavy purging for many people. I know for me it was, and not uncomfortable. For me, it wasn't uncomfortable purging, but it was very, very deep. It was really deep, and it was deeply emotional, right? And what I began to realize was, because I felt like we were also getting a lot of activations through the higher heart, but very specifically the higher heart and the material chakras, the lower chakras, the body chakras, so the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root. So higher heart and your physical chakras. And then I'm, musing on the moon and, doing this write-up, and all of a sudden it starts flowing through me as I'm writing, and I'm realizing that we are shifting into higher concepts as a collective. But we're going through this internally also first, because it's always, the collective energy is a result of our individual internal shifts first, right? So it feels like there's been a complete recalibration back into higher ways of viewing love, sex, money, and power, and how they intersect. And why do I say that? Because for whatever reason, when I sat down to do the Moonrise Musing this weekend and I saw the moon, she really wanted me to see her at master degrees. And when we're dealing with master degrees, we're dealing with themes of mastery, but we're dealing very specifically through the number 11 of a gate opening. And because 11 is connected to Aquarius, right now, it's really about the gates that are opening up into the Aquarian age, into Golden Age timelines. And when we're dealing with the Master Degree 22, that's a Capricorn degree. So we're dealing, it's a weird noise, we are dealing with the materialization of things on the planet, the materialization of timelines. We're dealing with matter. We're dealing with how things come from the invisible based upon our thoughts and our feelings, and how they anchor into reality and into our real time, and how we interact with those things. And because we're dealing with the mastery of this, it's how we learn how to use and to wield the power of our thoughts and our emotions to bring forth what it is that matches who we are again on the planet. So, like I said in the beginning, it's a really powerful time right now to reestablish your true destiny here on the earth. And it really does feel like the energy of now is here to help us build our dreams. But it's helping us to build our dreams by first helping us to remember what it is to connect organically and divinely with themes that have actually become so distorted in the false matrix that they've lost the true power of what they're supposed to be. And this is a deep recalibration and a deep rebirth, because there's a lot of Scorpio energy that's at play. And earlier I said, when I looked at the moon, it was astrologically in Scorpio. And I want to take you into this idea of astrology versus astronomy, and how no matter how you read the chart, these themes are still going to be there, especially if you're using like a system that I use. So, for example, astronomically speaking, as the moon enters into her fullness, she's technically in Scorpio, astronomically speaking. So if you have one of those apps, like I use Skyview app, if you have one of those apps and you point it at the sky, you'll find that the moon is moving through Scorpio, moving towards the final degrees right now, right, of Scorpio. But astronomically speaking, she's still moving through Sagittarius, right? So the interesting thing is that even if I read it as her being in Sagittarius, the Scorpio energy is still speaking really loudly to me, to share with you. So the Scorpionic energy, that's about rebirth, that's about transformation. But Scorpio is another sign of the zodiac that really helps us to do the deep soul work of learning how to master polarity. And this is what Gemini does too. And for those of you who hang out with me on my other channel, Solarah Speaks, which is my channel for I'm there more regularly. I do downloads, readings, etc. If you hang out with me over there, then you'll know over the past few readings, I've been talking about this Gemini energy and how it's here to help us master polarity, because without the mastery of polarity, we don't move in our infinite creative power. Right? So the false matrix taught us to separate things and to create this idea of duality where the polar opposites are at war with each other, because they knew that if they did that, it would cause schism within our own soul prints, and we'd forget that these energies are not at war, they're working together to create a third. Right? So polar opposites are always working together to create something else when we're not using that narrative of them being at war. And even if we do use that narrative of them being at war, they are creating something else, but they're creating something that a lot of the time isn't harmonious with the truth of who we are and what it is we want to create. That's where we miscreate. We miscreate when we misuse polarity. We cause undue conflict, undue stress when we misuse polarity, when we misuse it externally, but even very importantly, internally. And how do we misuse polarity internally? When we pick and choose those things about ourselves that we want to see or we want to own, and we disown those other parts of ourselves that exist, but we just don't want to see. And why is this important? Because this is where Scorpio begins to give us really deep lessons on polarity. Scorpio is a sign of the zodiac that draws you inwards into your own soul, so that you're able to see that you are devil and you are angel, you are everything and anything that you are able to connect with. It exists within you. And how do I know it exists within you? Because you don't even have the power to connect with anything if it's not a mirror, in some way, shape, or form. In some way, I'll always say it's to varying degrees, and sometimes it's a projection. We won't get into the depths of that. But everything we're able to see and properly discern, it exists within us. And the truth of the matter is everything exists within us, because we are multidimensional, infinite beings that are actually the universe condensed. We are the universe condensed, and the universe is us. You know, so I know that's a really big thing to think about, but I was even sharing with a client the other day, like, you know how they say the eyes are the windows into the soul. If you look into your eyes long enough, you might come to realize that you're not only looking into yourself, you're looking into the entirety of the cosmos, because your soul is a reflection of that. So anytime you reject something, you know, out of shame or disgust, you know, out of not taking the time to comprehend it, that's actually what you're doing to yourself on some level too. And this is what Scorpio wants to teach us. And this is what Gemini begins to open our minds to, so that by the time we get to the wisdom of Scorpio 5 months down the line, we've already begun the process of our minds being expanded, right? So this is what I'm saying. There are different signs of the zodiac that help you to master the lessons of polarity, and Gemini and Scorpio are very big for doing that. So I'm gonna do it, just a quick recap here. Gemini comes to help you expand your mind into the possibility of what is available to you, and Scorpio comes to help you to expand your magic also, by going within and learning how to master polarity through your emotional body. So utilizing the power of how you feel to become a conscious creator. And so I say that because we have these very powerful Gemini Scorpio themes that are at play with the full moon right now. So what is happening when that merges? We are getting the opportunity to kind of do both things at once, which is really fucking powerful, because this is what is going to allow for you to timeline jump really powerfully through the energies and the medicine of now, if you know how to integrate and assimilate and to see it for what it is. So with the Gemini and Scorpio working together through this full moon, and the Scorpio is working through the degree 20, being the card of judgment and also being an astrological degree of Scorpio, but it's also working on an astronomical level, meaning that the moon is technically in Scorpio at her fullness, astronomically speaking. So Scorpio is working very powerfully either way. Okay, so through this full moon, our minds are being expanded to break out of any mental prisons that have kept us in timelines we're not supposed to be in, because we weren't able to see past our own limitations. Whether those are limitations we've placed upon ourselves, or whether those are limitations that we have agreed to because they've been placed upon us. And the way that we break out of the mental box is, on the one hand, we have to think bigger And that's what Gemini does. But anytime, and you'll know if you're an alchemist and you've been doing this healing work for a minute, you'll know that anytime you start to think bigger, that's not the end of the story, right? Because you start to think bigger, you start to connect with a higher story about who you are. And then every single barrier internally that has kept you out of actualizing that higher story starts to come into your reality, or starts to detonate in your fields, because it's time to let it go. But you still got to do battle with it, because until you break out of agreeing with the energies that once upon a time kept you small, you don't get to touch the higher timeline. And so that's the internal work that has to be done through emotional alchemy. So a lot of the time, the way that presents itself is we get triggered in some way, shape, or form. We rise, or we make the decision in our minds that we are worthy of something. We start to connect with a higher story, a higher truth. We start to see who we are in our truer timelines when we stop bullshitting and fucking around and lying about who we are to ourselves. We start seeing ourselves as we really are, and we get excited, right? We get excited. And then the work of anchoring that vision that we've seen, it starts to come into place, because in order to materialize anything on these planes, it comes through the waters. So air is the mental energy. That's the thought you've connected with, that you've decided, oh, I can be that. That's actually who I am. That thought and vision agrees with me more than where I am right now. Okay, that's great. That's air. That's a plane. That's a mental planes. Now, in order for things to come through to the material planes, you got another thing to cross, and that's the waters. You got to cross the waters, and the waters connect to your emotional body, the emotional planes. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in your emotional fields that, although your mind has connected with the vision, you still got to clear the emotional gunk that was always the barrier between your ability to actually materialize it and bring it to earth. Because the final plane is earth, the elemental plane. After air, water, it's earth, right? So what's beautiful is through this full moon in Sagittarius, with the heavy Scorpionic themes, we've got those three elements working really powerfully. So we've got the element of air through Gemini, helping us to take our minds to places that we've never been before, or we've been too afraid to go, or we've been told we shouldn't go there, you shouldn't think so big, you shouldn't think so highly of yourself, etc., etc. Gemini says, fuck a bunch of that. Let's go on a journey. Let me show you what's possible for yourself. Right? And then Scorpio says, okay, well, yeah, you want to come and anchor this shit in. You want to just not dream about it and think about it in your mind. You want to start living it in your timelines. Well, let's get to work and dismantle everything in your emotional body that is the block. That is the block, right? So Scorpio is here to help you do that deep alchemy. And Sagittarius is fire. It says, okay, let me help you do this rapidly. Let me help you burn this shit to the ground. Let me help you do that. And let me help you do that, because we're dealing with Sagittarius energy. Let me help you do that by helping you to embody and actualize this new mindset. Let me help you to walk in it. Let me help you to have that swagger and that confidence you need in order to even begin to face those triggers with gusto, without fear. Because Sagittarius is the final fire sign on the zodiac wheel. And the fire signs come to bring light codes, right? So, and their light codes are very specific. So Aries comes to help us align with the divine mind, with the mind of God, you could say, or with your source encoded mind. So with your mind and your thoughts as they match up to who you truly are divinely, right? And then Leo, which is the second fire sign of the zodiac, comes to help you calibrate your heart, helps you to align with the heart of God, or your true heart, for in accordance with who you are and your purpose. And when you get the mind and the heart together, working in coherence and cohesiveness, you become unstoppable. And that's what Sagittarius is. Sagittarius is the joining of your divine mind with your divine heart and walking that shit out on earth. It's through Sagittarius that you bring your divinity, your God code, your source encoded truth. You begin to walk that shit on earth, and you don't give a fuck who cares anymore, because Sagittarius says you're going to walk by faith, not by sight. And it doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. It doesn't matter what everyone else is saying. It doesn't matter what the naysayers and the peanut gallery has to say about who you are. Who have you decided that you are, and how are you going to walk the walk given that? And what philosophy are you going to start to abide by so that you can stay in your frequency and be true to yourself and true to your source code? That's what Sagittarius is about. So you've got these signs working together in this full moon really powerfully to help you align your mind and to go into places that you dare not go before, that you've actually needed to break into to connect with the truth of who you are. Gemini says, you know what I love about Geminis? Geminis give no fucks a lot of the time. They have no fucks to give until maybe later on. Like, I've had a lot of friends who've been Geminis, and I'm a Leo sun, and I always say that people who are Geminis are like the fire signs of the zodiac, because literally it's just like, okay, whatever goes until it doesn't, kind of thing. And so that's kind of how we need to be when we're going into places that once upon a time were scared. You want to go somewhere where you have a little bit of fear, and to lose some of that fear, go with someone who either is like has a lot of Gemini or has a lot of that Gemini medicine, because sometimes that Gemini medicine doesn't even show up as Gemini in the chart. Sometimes it's people with a lot of third house placements, etc. It shows itself up in people in different ways. But either way, you want to go into places that you've been afraid of going to before. Gemini will help you do that. So will Sagittarius. Sagittarius loves to travel, right? And it's not about traveling physically, although many Sagittarians do. It's about traveling beyond the boundaries that you've limited yourself in, that keep you playing small and keep you out of actualizing and embodying your godhood on earth. So whenever you're working with Gemini and Sagittarius axis stuff, you're always dealing with the expansion that wants to take you out of your comfort zone. But it also gives you the ability to do that without so much fear, because of with Gemini, it's because of the lack of fucks that Gemini gives in many ways. And with Sagittarius, it's similar, but it's also with that fiery confidence. They both are very confident, both signs that help us to really connect deeper with our confidence, both Sagittarius and Gemini, right? So we have that. And then Scorpio is a sign where it's just like, Scorpio has no fear of the depths of anything. It doesn't fear darkness. It doesn't fear going to those places that we've been told we shouldn't go. But it's for different reasons with Scorpio. With Scorpio, we've been told not to go to those places out of shame. With Gemini and Sagittarius, it's often we've been told not to go to those places out of fear. It's not safe. So I say that because we are breaking through, or we have the power with this full moon to break through so many boundaries and limitations that have kept us boxed into realities and timelines that don't match the truth of who we are, because of fear and because of shame. That's some real powerful density busting energy that we're dealing with. And because you're dealing with a full moon also, full moons are also here to bring endings, to close things out. So very, very powerful alchemy we have that's happening right now through the full moon in Sagittarius, right? And then you have to ask yourself the question, or I ask myself the question, well, where is all this leading to? Because after this, what's coming up? We've got the new moon in Cancer, right? I think it's happening on June the 25th. But then we've got the full moon in Capricorn happening on July 10th. And if you've been chilling with me for a while, especially on my platform, Solarah.xyz, I've been talking about this, writing about this. That full moon in Capricorn has been talking to me really loudly for the past couple of months. So we're definitely crescendoing. We're coming to a grand crescendo in the energies in terms of something really huge closing out that we have to be prepared for. And what do we have to be prepared for that's closing out? Well, the complete collapse of a lot of these ancestral, institutionalized grids and foundations that were designed very specifically for our siphoning and for keeping us small. And the only way that's actually going to completely bottom out is when we disengage with those energies that kept those grids alive. So what do I mean by that? I mean, this full moon and the energies leading up to the full moon in Capricorn in a month are here to help you really reestablish your true frequency and to stand and to embody and to actualize it, so you bring forth your true timelines on the earth planes, so that you completely, those grids that supported your fake timelines, your false matrix timelines, can completely crash out. That's what it's feeling like this is happening right now, right? So this full moon is really working with us to help us establish a higher frequency that was always ours to have, but there were so many densities that we couldn't get to it. The densities within and the densities without. So let's break this down, because we're like 36 minutes in. I don't know if I'm going to go into everything tonight, because the channeling, we'll see. Okay, the sun in Gemini, 20 degrees. So the sun, that's the sun card. Gemini is the magician energy, right? The magician is where we learn how to take everything that is in existence, to begin to learn how to work with it to create material reality, or to create timelines, or to create on our own terms. But we're creating out of like chaos, like everything is there. What do you pick? Where do you start? How do you even begin? That's kind of like the Gemini energy. And that's what I was talking about in the beginning. Like, energy is swirling. It's chaotic. It's tense. And it's perfect. It's perfect for creation. Conscious creation. It's perfect for conscious destruction. It's perfect for the wielding of your creative powers to consciously bring back your destiny onto the earth, your true destiny onto the earth, because that's what Sagittarius does. Helps you to bring your destiny back onto the earth, right? So the magician. The other card of Gemini is the lovers. And this speaks about your higher contracts, those contracts that are divine, those contracts that sometimes feel fated, those things that align you with your ability to bring, quote unquote, heaven on earth. And heaven is wildly subjective, but heaven can only be reached as you reach yourself. As you reach your truth, because paradise is a subjective experience that we're able to objectively and collectively experience when we are first able to harmonize that within self, and then come together and make the choice to harmonize it collectively, which is a bigger deal. But it's not possible. It's not possible with people, with beings, with groups who haven't first individually done the soul work. I hope that makes sense. So 20, in terms of the minor arcana card, it technically is the 10 of swords, but it's the doorway into the 10 of swords, because once you reach the 20-degree mark, you are kind of teetering at the very end of the 9 of swords and moving into the 10 of swords. So we're dealing with the sun energy in the 10 of swords. So everything is being illuminated right now for us to see, if we choose to use our eyes to see that, for us to see our own self-defeating habits, but also for us to get a clearer picture of the ways that we've been sabotaged and slowed down, blocked by others, but we've consented to that in some way. So what do I mean by that? I'm not saying you consciously consented, but I'm saying anytime we buy into a narrative that is not in alignment with our truth, and we start to create those timelines, on some levels because we believed it. On some levels, we believed that we're not worthy of more. On some levels, we believed that we're not capable of more. We believed that lie. We believed it for a myriad of reasons. Many of us believed it because we were groomed and abused and conditioned and programmed into that state, but we still believed it. And we therefore created a life and timelines off of that lie and that fuckery. And the 10 of Swords today, the sun in Gemini, and this is not just today, these are the closing degrees of Gemini as the sun closes out its time in Gemini. Those areas of self-sabotage and those areas of believing stories and narratives about ourselves that cause those self-sabotaging, self-defeating mindsets that then contributed to our behaviors, those things are going to become so much clearer. And they're becoming clearer not to shame us, they're becoming clearer to help us break free. Because the 10 of Swords, for as long as, you see, everything's a journey with the signs, everything's a journey with the tarot. The 10 of Swords isn't just a definitive card, it's showing you a journey of possibilities. The 10 of Swords is where you begin to see something and it can break your heart. It can break your heart, or it can completely blindside you when you begin to see it because you weren't aware of just how deep something was, or how committed you were to believing or thinking or living in a certain way that's so far away. It comes and it shows you that reality. But then what comes next is, are you going to fall into that place of complete self-blame and self-rejection and self-dejection that causes you to either stay in the 10 of Swords for longer than you have to, or heaven forbid, regressing into the 9 of Swords and, having sleepless nights, depression, anxiety? Are you going to do all of that? Or are you going to allow the 10 of Swords to be the information you need to be illuminated and to utilize the power of this really amazing Scorpionic energy of alchemy and transformation to do the deep emotional work of not allowing yourself to become to shame yourself and to become a victim because of your mistakes, or because of your inability to see before, or because it wasn't your time. But either way, now you're being shown. What are you going to do with that information? Are you going to let that information help you to rise so you can break out of a box that you've been stuck in and you didn't even realize maybe you were stuck in, or you didn't know entirely how to break out of it? Or are you going to let that information shrink you back into a timeline that matches that small narrative, that narrative of you being smaller than who you are because you think that information is like proof of your worth, or proof of your inability to go past the threshold? So deep decisions, because that's the other thing about the Judgment card, which is the 20 degree. 20 lines up with the Judgment card in the tarot, which is the Pluto Scorpionic energy I was also talking about. 20. Judgment card is also, it is a card of reckoning. It is a card where we are called to a place to make a decision very specifically for the purpose of ending something, and very specifically because illumination has come. Because the Judgment card follows the sun, and the sun brings everything to light. Can't nothing hide under the light of the sun. And then you got to make a choice. Okay, you see everything now for what it is, or for who you are. What are you going to do about it? What decision are you going to make based upon that? So the moon in Sagittarius at 20 degrees, that's the moon. Sagittarius is temperance. The 20 degrees, again, is 2 cards. It's the end of the 9 of Wands and the beginning of the 10 of Wands. So we're teetering again in these energies. And it's very interesting because it's foreshadowing what we're moving towards with this full moon in Capricorn, because I mentioned before, this full moon in Capricorn is about completely annihilating those grids and foundations that contributed to the familial fuckery in the false matrix, the programs, the family programs that were designed for the purpose of prepping and priming beings for energy harvesting. Prepping and priming people for, for enslavement, for control, right? You learned it first through your family structure. Family through the false matrix was designed as a program to ultimately cause self-destruction under the guise of tradition and all manner of other things. And, you know, every family is different. But the point of the matter is that within the false matrix, it was very difficult for families to not fall into these patterns of dysfunction, even if they were subtle, because that's what we were told family was. And we'll get into that maybe in a month. But I say all of this because the 9 and the 10 of Wands are very interesting and telling cards, because you're dealing with moon energy. So you're dealing with the full moon. So you are dealing with illumination, but you're also dealing with the illumination of things that are just coming to light, things that are just being pulled out of the unconscious, the subconscious. I don't know about y'all, but my dreams have been really interesting over the past couple of, the past 2 weeks or so. Right? And this is what the full moon does. It draws things out of hiding, out of the places they've been hiding within us, so that we can have conscious awareness of that which maybe before we could feel, but we couldn't make sense of. So, and I will be getting into this on Solarah Speaks because it's been coming up a lot, and I know that I have to do a reading on it at this point. But there's a lot of lies that we bought into when it came to do with ancestry and family that actually were designed to keep us stuck and cycling through the false matrix and even its reincarnation program and all of that stuff. Right? There's many lies we followed, even in the spiritual community, that actually were designed to keep us stuck and beholden to energy harvesting systems that were very intricately connected to ancestral entities that some people open themselves up to as if they were here to give their all to them. But here's the truth, and this is where a lot of the breaking of illusion is happening through this full moon, because that's another thing that Gemini does. Gemini comes to break your fucking illusions. Sagittarius does that too in a different way. This is an illusion that has to be broken. And this is the 9 of Wands, is the card in the tarot that connects with this whole idea of a generational curse breaker. You're not here to break curses for anyone but yourself. You're not here, I'm going to say that again, you're not here to break curses for anyone but yourself. Other people's karmic responsibility is their karmic responsibility. And this whole idea of certain beings and certain families being there to break the karma of those who came before and those who don't want to be bothered is just another fancy karmic transference agenda of the false matrix that was designed to target you and your woundedness and make you feel like your pain had a purpose. Your pain does have a purpose. That whole idea of going through the generational curse breaker idea is something we've all been through. I went through it too, I went through it too. And we do have to go through it sometimes to heal, to get back the integrity that we've lost because of all of the pain we've been through. We've got to go through it in order to really begin to make sense. But we're not supposed to get stuck there. We're supposed to rise out of that mentality also, to recognize and realize that you're actually not here to clear the karma that other people couldn't be bothered to clear. You're not here to do that. You really aren't, and at the end of the day, everyone has their own choice to make. If you feel so called that you're here to do that because other people couldn't do it because of the densities we were in at that time, then everyone has their own calling. But I will say that on a universal soul level, etc., everyone is responsible for their own choices and their own decisions on their soul's journey. And we're actually not here to take responsibility for the karma of other people, especially if that karma isn't something that's been accrued by them because of us, in which case it's shared karma. So for example, I am here to do certain things to clear what it is I've done in my own woundedness that affects my children, because they came from me and I have contracts with them. And because I didn't know who I was for the longest of time, and because I'm still discovering and I'm still healing, there are times I am, I'm racking up karma as I learn and as I heal. And that's my responsibility to alchemize. That's my responsibility to clear, so that I don't pass that on to them, because it's not for them to deal with. So in that sense, yes. But when it comes to dealing with other people, people who've come before, yada, yada, that kind of like mindset is often what also keeps us open to harvesting. Because those beings who died in that state were still, a lot of the time, subject to the ancestral entities that they kept themselves open to feed, and that they ultimately opened you up to feed in their contracts too. I'm not going to get into it too much tonight, because like I said, I'm going to do a whole talk about it, reading about it, downloads on Solarah Speaks. But I think this full moon in Sagittarius is going to begin to open the door and to remove that veil from many who have bought the lie that they're here in some way to save people in bloodlines that in real talk, some of you have been binded to incarnate into time and time again so that they could use you as a battery. You were binded to them so you couldn't incarnate into any other bloodline but certain bloodline networks that you were only allowed to incarnate because you were being used as a battery because of your frequency, because of who you are frequentially speaking. So this moon is moving back the veils on a lot of the reasons why we even subscribed to some of those stories and narratives to begin with. And again, the reason we subscribe will almost always have to do with the pain that we've accrued and how we have tried to deal with it at every turn. And that's the energy that has to come up for us to see, to make peace with, to let go, so that we actually clear our emotional fields to receive all that is rightfully ours, that we haven't been able to welcome because we've been holding on to baggage that doesn't even belong to us. It doesn't even belong to us. So, yes. 53 minutes in, and this is like a record for me. Sun and the moon, and only 53 minutes in, but we're going to move through these other placements very quickly, and we're going to probably end at Saturn and do the nodes also, but we're going to move through like Mercury and Cancer quite quickly, and the others, because a lot of these everything I've already said is going to be repeated in different ways. That's kind of different expressions of the same, different expressions in different details. Let's put it that way. So Mercury in Cancer. Mercury entered Cancer, and so we're already being spoken to because the sun is moving through Gemini, so that's the planet of Mercury. So we're already getting a lot of mercurial wisdom with the sun in Gemini that has to do with our minds. But now Mercury is moving through Cancer, and this, just like the Scorpionic energy, is here to talk to us about our emotional foundations. It's here to talk to us about our matrices. the matrices, the foundations upon which our emotional experiences are built, and therefore how cycles ensue and how cycles continue. Right? So a lot of the time, the reason why we continue cycles that we don't want to be in is not because we want to do it. It's because that energy is so deeply imprinted upon us that we don't even know how to get to the matrix, to the foundation of where it all began, to begin to disentangle it and get it out of us so that we can actually function and live in accordance and feel in accordance with what it is we know we deserve. Well, Mercury in Cancer is helping us go there. So is this deeply Scorpionic energy and theme. It's helping you to get to the root of some of these patterns and cycles so that you can see them for what they are. You can see your responsibility in them. You can see where you've been carrying responsibility you shouldn't have been carrying. You can see why you did that, and you can get the fuck out of Dodge. So Mercury is talking to you through Cancer at a Cancerian degree, which is 4, which is also the Emperor in the Tarot. So this is speaking to you about things that have become deeply emotionally established. Deeply emotionally established and have become the foundation for what you built. And a lot of that goes back. Again, you're dealing with Cancer, family energy. You're dealing with Cancer and the number 4, matriarchal, maternal, matrix, the things, material, mater, the things from which all things are made, the mother energy. The mother energy is what creates things. It's where creation actually begins to materialize. The masculine energy comes with the creative spark, right? The feminine energy materializes that spark into something, magnifies it, multiplies it. And then the masculine energy comes back in to take that out and to disperse it. So we're dealing right now, the Mercury in Cancer at 4 degrees, which again, like I said, is a Cancerian degree, but it's also the Emperor in the Tarot, divine masculine energy, how foundations begin to become established, right? So we're being spoken to about that. That's what Mercury is. We're being woken up. There's a grand awakening that's happening again in the emotional body, especially as the sun gets ready to move through Cancer. And for those of you who are deeply connected to how astrology works to heal you, to enlighten you, to help you alchemize yourself, then you'll know that any transit through Cancer is some really deep emotional alchemy, because, well, all the water signs, but Cancer's job as a water sign is to help you get to the seabed, the foundation, the matrix, the beginning of it. So that's deep, right? So a lot of stuff going on that Mercury is speaking to us about. Now that 4 degrees of Cancer, it is 2 of Cups. 2 of Cups. So there's a lot of alchemy, and I was writing about this over the weekend too. There's a lot of alchemy that's happening right now to prepare you, to prepare us for higher relational dynamics and standards that we've lost because when you lose your own internal emotional alchemy, you don't really know how to have true alchemy with another. And this is why false matrix relationships and what they called love was such a shallow representation of what love actually is, and also partly the reason why love on this planet in its unconditional form hasn't actually been able to thrive, because unconditional love can not thrive when you're in survival mode. It's not sustainable when you're in constant survival mode, because your survival becomes the ultimate goal. Right? So unconditional love is not very sustainable when you're in survival mode and you're constantly living on a planet that is making you fight to survive. Right? So they knew this, right? And unconditional love is not really possible in union with another or with others if you don't know how to do individual emotional alchemy. If you don't know how to discern yourself, what it is you're feeling, why it is you're feeling, how it is to overcome those feelings you don't want to have, if you don't know how to do that for yourself, how are you going to do that in connection with another? You can't. You can't. You can't do for another what you can't first do for yourself. And so this is the purpose of all of the healing work we've been doing also, because we're not just healing for the sake of healing. We're not here to just be healing forever. You know, there has to be an end to the constant focus on healing. But what was the purpose of it? The purpose was so you could come back to your wholeness, because we're here to bring the earth back into her wholeness. And we can't bring the earth back into her wholeness if we're not whole on an individual level, and that we're not aligning and walking with people who amplify our ability to be whole and our ability to get back to our wholeness, right? So Mercury in Cancer is talking to us, reminding us. Remember, I said over the weekend, I was feeling very powerfully higher heart activations coming through very specifically for the solar plexus, sacral chakra, root chakra. Higher heart is our doorway back into unconditional love, how we live as beings, how we connect and bring divine love back onto the planet is through the higher heart. But our ability to actualize and realize it in self and in the systems that we've created, or in the systems that have existed up until this time, that have actually been designed to keep us systemically out of the ability to love one another unconditionally. There's a shift internally with all of the systemic programming that was responsible for that, so that we can reconnect with the truth of how we love unconditionally, and we prosper, and we can be powerful, and we can have amazing sex, and all of these things where, you know, these things are supposed to be objects and tools and experiences of joy that have turned into battlefields for power and control. This is what Scorpio deals with also. Right? So this is what is being, like moved about in our realities, in our emotional and mental bodies, and in the collective consciousness right now. We're all being stirred. Right? Okay. Venus in Taurus. I'm on a roll today, right? Venus in Taurus at 5 degrees. Well, Venus loves being in Taurus, right? Venus loves being in Taurus, and Venus loves being in Libra because she rules both signs. Now, it's beautiful that Venus is in Taurus, because Venus in Taurus is speaking about our ability to reconnect with our right to live comfortably, with our right to live luxuriously, with our right to have comfort and all of those things that we've been programmed into believing are a reward for being good. Get good grades, do good things, and then maybe we'll let you sleep, and maybe we'll let you go on holiday, and maybe we'll let you have these things that really you need to thrive. But when you're living in a planet that wants to keep you in survival, then these things that are here for your thriving become a treat. And Venus in Taurus says, fuck a bunch of that. Okay? Fuck a bunch of that. And again, we have a Taurus. We have a Taurus degree, because Venus is in Taurus at 5. We have a Taurus degree in the Tarot association of the number 5, right? So the Tarot card, the number 5 card in the Tarot, is the Hierophant. It's all the systemic ways we were programmed into believing we had to earn the right to rest. We had to earn the right to be comfortable. We had to earn the right to feel at peace, to be at peace. It's not something that we should automatically have. But here's the thing. Taurus is the sign through which the Divine Mother begins to speak to us about who we are and the resources that she's given us and what we deserve. Taurus is a sign through which the Divine Mother begins to tell us who we are and what our worth is, because we emanate from her flow and her grace. Taurus begins to speak to us about our worth in that way. And so you were never here to earn the right to rest or to earn the right to things that were already given to you as gifts from your divine mother. You weren't here to earn that. You didn't actually, this planet actually, it's not here for you to come here and to work and to earn and to only get things when you're productive in accordance with the system standards that say you are productive, which oftentimes means kill yourself for the matrix, kill yourself for these corporations that don't give a fuck about you because they see you as just being highly replaceable. You can die today and tomorrow they've replaced you and forgotten who you actually even are. You don't even exist in their reality anymore. You're just a fucking number and a battery. That's not what you came here to do. Before the false matrix became established on the earth was here for you to simply come and learn how to utilize the power of your fucking magic in the material. And everything you needed to do that was here. And for as long as you were living in accordance with what allowed for harmony to stay on the earth in material ways, you were fine. And the harmony, I'm going to remind you that is necessary for all beings to create on the earth planes. It's an internal responsibility. So in other words, your main responsibility was an internal one, was the responsibility of creating internal harmony and then taking that internal harmony and using it to produce more harmonious states with all beings you connected and interconnected with. And those beings who you couldn't reach a harmonious state with, then you leave them alone to find those who they're in harmony with, and so on and so forth. You didn't come here to have to slave away to get what was already given you, for your leisure. And that's what Venus and Taurus, this full moon, is talking to us about, because the 5-degree mark astrologically is a degree of Leo. And Leo is that sign of the zodiac that just wants you to shine and to be who you are. That's the medicine of Leo is here to return you to the sun, return you to your truth, return you to your heart, return you to your core, and not be afraid to be that, not be afraid to shine, not be afraid to be who you are, not be afraid to play and to have fun, etc., and to nurture and to pamper and to express the power of your inner child. That's what Leo is, right? So Venus and Taurus at a Leo degree, astrologically, and at the Taurus card, the Hierophant, is all about helping to bring back onto the earth planes these things, helping to bring back your right to beauty. Venus will always try to bring you back to this idea that you have a right to beauty. And when she's in Taurus, she's just like, yeah, you got a right to beauty, you got a right to comfort, you got a right to luxury. And here with the sun in Gemini, here telling you to push past all of these mental boxes that have had you limited, Venus is just like, yeah, let me add to that list of what Gemini is helping you to break out of, so you know you have a right to your comfort. You have a right to luxury, and everything that you see and everything you experience right now might be telling you otherwise, but it doesn't matter what the false matrix is still trying to throw your way in its illusions, because at the end of the day, the alchemy that Scorpio and Sagittarius are giving you access to through this full moon are here to help you to break past the densities where you have felt like you're not worthy of that, or like you have to earn it, or that you're going to believe the narrative that the false matrix has fed you. The stories, the traditions, the reasons, right? There's so many reasons they give you. If you don't do this, then you don't get to eat. That's not a reason. That's actually just a fucking control mechanism that you can actually break if you know who you are, right? Mars and Leo. More Leo energy coming through now, right? And this time Mars expressing itself through the sign. And the 26 degree mark also has some Leo underpinning energy. Oh, wait a minute. Let me just say the 5 degrees of Taurus for Venus in Taurus at 5 degrees, that's a 5 of Pentacles. So again, this is breaking a lot of lack stories, a lot of systemic stories around your self-worth and what you deserve and what you're allowed. This is what the Venus in Taurus is breaking. And the 5 of Pentacles, not or nothing, is also that crazy fucking ride or die card of the tarot. You ain't here to ride or die. You're here to ride and fly. Okay? There's no riding and dying. Fuck that. Fuck it. Let that break. Let that illusion break and shatter. They love to glorify your suffering. Fuck that. Mars and Leo at 26 degrees. Mars and Leo at 26 degrees. Mars is the tower. So Mars is the male destructive planet. Pluto is the female destructive planet, or the masculine energy expresses itself through Mars, I should say, and the feminine aspects of destruction, expression of destruction, expresses itself through Pluto. So Mars in Leo Mars is here to fuck some shit up. And what is it here to fuck up? Well, with the Leo energy, it's here to protect, and it's here to destroy a lot of what has exploited our childhood wounds. So for those of you, this channel has been up for two years. I think I began this channel, I think I began it Gemini season of 2023. So it's my 2-year anniversary. Okay. Anyway, for those of you who've been hanging with me for a while, you'll know that I talk a lot about how the false matrix was rooted upon childhood sacrifice energy, both literally and figuratively. So let's go into it. The literal one is pretty obvious at this point, right? And it's coming out more and more every day. But let's talk about the covert childhood sacrifice, childhood exploitation. From the time a child enters this planet, they are being pulled through systems that are designed to disempower them and to strip them of their divinity, their true worth, and their codes. And it begins with how family was systemically taught to function. And then it begins with all of the systemic ways that children are programmed out of their truth, through socialization, through the educational system, and later on, the work system. And to prove my point also, I want to tell you that when you look at the tarot, in the tarot, there are 22 cards in the major arcana, right? They begin at the 0 card, the Fool, and end at the number 21 card, which is the World, right? Which is the Saturnian energy of the world, the encapsulation of the time and the cycle. 22 cards. At what age, especially in American culture, is a child considered an adult? 21. But even more importantly, at what age in most cultures do adults finally graduate out of their schooling to the point where their ability to function in the world is recognized? That would be adults who go to university to at least get a bachelor's degree. And in most places around the world, they graduate at around the age of 22. So the first 22 years of your life, they keep you systemically under their programs. And that's not a mistake. That number is not a mistake, because like I said to you before, 22 is a master degree that connects you to Capricorn, which is about what it is you're able to materialize and bring forth on the earth planes. So if they keep you the first 22 years under programming, then it assures that the next 50, 60 years, if you have that on the earth planes, you will continue to regurgitate the systemic nonsense they programmed you into in your prime years of awakening. And the socialization and the systems of the false matrix were designed to not only program you, but they were designed to disempower you, program you against yourself, capsize the power of your solar plexus so that your will becomes theirs while you think you're free. And they were also designed to set you into trauma loops and to harm your innocence, to steal your innocence, so that that theft of your innocence could constantly be exploited and monetized. Because everything they then tell you in the false matrix is 5 of Pentacles. You are never enough in the false matrix. You're never enough. You're never enough, according to their dogmas and their philosophies. You're never enough, which is why you always need something else to get to the next level. If you have this, you're going to be better. If you have this car, if you drive this thing, if you know this person, if you get this degree, if you live in this neighborhood, and you kill yourself trying to live up to standards and values that aren't even your own. And the only reason you learn to take on those standards and values and chase them is because you've been diminished in your identity. You've been diminished in your own sense of empowerment. Your solar plexus has been taken by the systems and it's under their control. And so everything they're telling you to do to become better, you believe. Because you've completely lost your internal compass because it was stripped from you purposely from birth. And Mars in Leo is fighting against that. Mars in Leo is a beautiful energy for fighting on behalf of children. Fighting on behalf of your joy, your right to your joy, your right to be who you are, your right to shine, your right to play, your right to pleasure. So Venus in Taurus, is dealing with some of these themes in a different way. And Mars is more like, martial in the energy, more like, we're not doing this shit anymore. 26 degrees of Leo. I was saying before that's an underpinning energy of Leo, because if you take the 2 and the 6 and you break it down, it's an 8, and that's a strength card in the tarot, and the strength card is the card of Leo. But 26 degrees is also a degree of Cancer, astrologically speaking. Sorry, it's a degree of Taurus, astrologically speaking. So Taurus, again, we're dealing with self-worth. And the 26 degrees of Leo in the minor arcana is the 7 of Wands. The 7 of Wands. So let's break this down in the tarot energies. We have the Tower, which is Mars. We have the Strength card and the Sun card, which are the cards of Leo. And we have the 7 of Wands, which is the card of Leo for 20 to 29 degrees Leo. Okay, so Tower, Strength, Sun, 7 of Wands. This is very, very powerful energy. Powerful energy to help you to break into the fullness of who you are and to stop having to cover it up and defend your right to be who you are, with that 7 of Wands also. Okay, we're going to go into Jupiter and Cancer at 0 degrees. Jupiter just entered into Cancer, I want to say like maybe 2 days ago. I forget at this point, maybe 2 days ago. So in other words, Jupiter literally just entered into Cancer after a pretty long stint in Gemini, and will be in Cancer, I believe, for the next year, just, a year and a few days. So what's Jupiter doing in Cancer? Well, Jupiter is another planet of expansion. Jupiter is the planet that rules over Sagittarius, which is where the moon is, and co-rules over Pisces. And when you're dealing with Sagittarius and Pisces, you're dealing very powerfully with how you negotiate the concepts of faith, hope, and love. And very specifically, when you're dealing with Jupiter, you're dealing with faith. Faith, your ability to, and faith is something that's been coming up a lot. I just wrote about it yesterday also in the Moonrise Musing on Solarah.xyz. But faith is your ability, oftentimes, to walk in the face of adversity, walk in the face of everyone else telling you to do something else, or walking in one direction, and you choosing to tune into your own divine truth and your divine purpose and your divine story, so much so, and be so anchored in that frequency that that's what you're choosing to follow. and everything in the false matrix, they created this collective hive socialization where it was dangerous for you to be yourself. If you decided to go your own way and to do your own thing without being connected to the groups that they said you needed in order to thrive, then you perished. And they did that on purpose to bully you into submission. But this is what people like Yeshua came to teach us about when it came to talking about faith. That it's possible for you to break that matrix. It's possible for you to be who you are divinely and to express yourself in the fullness of your source code. It's possible. It takes a lot of mental work, and a lot more back then, because nothing in the collective energy really supported his ability to reconnect with himself and to bring forward his divine reality on the earth planes. Nothing in the collective energy really assisted. We have a lot of help right now. Different collective stream of consciousness, etc., etc. So, Jupiter in Cancer at 0 degrees. The 0 degree will speak of a portal. We're being taken into something through the 0 degrees. And what are we being taken into? Well, when you're dealing with Cancerian energy, you are being taken into a whole new matrix. Because everything's formed on a matrix. Matrix is the mother energy of creation. Right? So Jupiter is taking us into a new mother energy of creation, the 0 degrees. And that new mother energy of creation is only possible as you walk in your power and your truth, as you walk in faith in accordance with who you are. So Jupiter is the wheel of fortune. There's something shifting out of constant karmic lessons into dharmic living. It's possible, right? Jupiter at 0 degrees. The 0 degree mark is the Ace of Cups. It's cardinal water. It's the beginning of a new emotional story. It's the beginning of a new emotional story. So a lot of the original emotional foundations that built our trauma, the cycles, the loops, the things we've had to endure, the things we've had to clear, a lot of that is being washed away very powerfully within you as an individual, if you're willing to let go, and within the collective energy too. There's a washing away. And it's courtesy also of the Divine Mother's return. So, Jupiter in Cancer at 0 degrees. The Cancerian energy is the Chariot also. So this is also speaking about the coming back up on of the light body. But more than the coming back on, it's more like the remembrance of how to use it. The remembrance of how to use it because you're entering a new emotional story. Because your light body, you move through your emotions. You move through. Cancer is another sign that begins to give you very powerful lessons in polarity as it comes to creating emotional foundations. So as it comes to how you discern your emotional foundations and how it is you work through your feelings in terms of what it is you're creating from moment to moment, Cancer helps you to break that down. It helps you to deal with how you build foundations emotionally. So it gives you a very deep wisdom around what you're building and how you're building it based upon what you're feeling, you're allowing yourself to linger in, and how you're utilizing your own abilities to either stay in emotional situations or to maneuver or to process. All of that begins through the wisdom and the lessons of Cancer. Saturn in Aries at 1 degrees. Saturn is moving through Aries, getting ready, I think, to retrograde maybe next month. So at that 1 degree of Aries, 1 is where It just moved into 1 degree. So 1 after the 0. 0 is the doorway. It's the infinite potential. And 1 is where something begins to become potentialized. It begins the process of the crystallization where it becomes. Right? So Saturn through Aries is helping us to become. And what is it helping us to become? Well, it's helping us to not only get our crowns back, but to wear those crowns and to come back into divine alignment with our true sovereign codes for as long as we're willing to accept. Everything is all about our willingness to accept, to receive, and to move past the constructs that have kept us rejecting this unconsciously or not believing it's possible, which is one and the same thing. Okay, we're going to move now to the nodes, because speaking of 22 degrees, 22 as an energy, we have the North Node in Pisces at 22 degrees and the South Node in Virgo at 22 degrees. So we have that 22 degree mark is a degree of Capricorn. It's a master number, a master degree of materialization. So what I feel is happening through the nodal placement for today's full moon is there's a lot of wisdom coming through about how we establish and materialize our truth on the earth. But there's also a lot of wisdom coming through on how we completely let go of that which we have already materialized time and time again, so much so that we didn't think anything else was possible. And the North Node in Pisces, this is the Hanged One. This is the High Priestess. That's Pisces is the High Priestess. The Hanged One is Neptune, right? And then 22 degrees is still the 10 of Cups. So again, we're dealing still with these themes of what it means to be in groups where we have deep emotional attachments, but we're also dealing with where we've sacrificed our power and our truth to be a part of these scenarios and stories that were actually never written for us. So that's where the North Node is helping us to see this also, and will continue to as we move into the second decan of Pisces. Like when we hit the 20 degree mark of Pisces, 20 degree mark of Virgo, then we're going to be traversing through the 9 of Cups and the 9 of Pentacles, where it's really about liberating yourself from these groups that you should have never really stayed in or been a part of, not only physically, but also allowed yourself to be mentally trained and emotionally bonded to the point where you lost yourself, which was the point of the false matrix group theories that were put together for family, for society, for most communities. And society, community, family, all those things, I'm not shitting on any of it. I'm saying that the way they were weaponized against us through false programming. And what we're doing here is we are removing ourselves from all of it, especially the internal mechanisms to birth what is truly organically aligned with what family, community, real support should look like in the dynamics we foster in the keeping of individual and collective harmony. A lot of beings in the false matrix were sacrificed for the purpose of keeping false peace. But peace where any being's power, worth, truth has to be sacrificed isn't real. It isn't real. Real peace and real harmonious situations, it doesn't require someone else to sacrifice their power or their truth. It just doesn't. There's such a thing as compromise, and even in compromise, true harmony is kept. True ability to be who you are in the wholeness of self should still remain. Otherwise, it's sacrifice. and sacrifice in love scenarios that is not tempered into something harmonious becomes energy harvesting. There's a fine balance, there's a fine line, and in the midst of every individual and every union of energies, whether with one other person or many other people, the alchemy to maintain harmony will be highly subjective. Meaning what works for you will not work. What works to maintain your harmony will not work for another. What works to maintain the harmonious union between two people in one, relationship, partnership is not going to be the same for anyone else. There is no blueprint that works for everyone. There is no curriculum that can apply to all. You see where I'm going with this and how we got fucked over? It doesn't exist. You create your own map, your own curriculum, your own blueprints for what is right for you on a soul level and what is right for the soul energy of what you're creating with another or with others. And yes, you can get guidance from other people's experiences and even their advice, but it's still not your map. It might help you create your map, but it's not yours. Okay, so that was a big one. And, Lilith is in Scorpio, so we still got that Scorpionic. Lilith in Scorpio is here to give you back your power, really. To give you back so much of what you've lost, especially what you've lost on the spiritual black market. That's what Lilith has really been speaking in Scorpio, speaking to me about as she transits through Scorpio. But I say that because that Scorpio energy, with Lilith expressing herself through it, is going to be working through December. It's going to be working through December. So that's what I have for you. It's been a really long one tonight. I hope that you've enjoyed it. For those of you who would like to work with me, I'll put the information for that in the description box and comment section below. If you would like to tip me, buy me a coffee, say thank you, you can do so through the payment links through my Ko-Fi. I'll put that there, my PayPal, and then also through my site, solarah.xyz. I'll put all the payment links for that in the description box and comment section below. And thank you to those of you who do contribute to my ability to come on here and share what it is that I've been shown. Thank you so much. If you would like to have a tarot-astrology reading with me, I'm doing audio and one-to-ones only right now. I'm not doing video tarot-astrology readings, and I'm not doing reports. I'm working on my final one right now, and then I won't be doing reports for a while until I figure out a more energy efficient way. Okay, so for those of you who want a personal tarot-astrology soul mapping reading, audio, one-to-ones, those services are by you emailing me directly. So email me at Solarah Speaks, Solarah with an H, Solarah Speaks at proton.me if you would like to schedule that with me. What else? I have a whole bunch of decrees that I've been, working on, and I have the newest one I have is for breaking glamour spells and recalling your beauty and your power and all that that is lost through the glamour spells that are often a part of the ritual harvesting, which is a part of the false matrix in general, but especially those of you who have dealt with, intense destiny swapping and soul mimicry experiences and situations. Glamours are something that are used very, very in a myriad of ways. So anyway, my decree for breaking those glamours is now available. I just released it, I think, over the weekend. As always, or for now, those decrees are for free or for inspired donation. So I will put the full list of the decrees that I've done over the past couple of weeks in the description box and comment section below. Please do visit my Ko-Fi because there are more decrees than just those ones. And I still have to do a few of the audio ones of the newer ones, but they will be up very soon too. Okay, so happy full moon in Sagittarius, or may you have the moon you deserve. I don't know, like I'm being so careful with words right now, you know, because there's power in your proclamations. There's power in what you proclaim over yourself and others. And we're all here for different experiences. So anyway, I will see you guys again for the new moon in Cancer in 2 weeks. And I will see you again on Solarah Speaks very shortly. And for those of you who want to connect with me on a daily basis, you can do so on solarah.xyz, where I write there. The Daily Alchemy is the daily message that is available on my site and is for free, or you can have it sent directly to your inbox if you don't, you know, want to have to go there every single day. You just sign up for it and it will get sent to your inbox every single day as I release it. So there's also other membership options on solarah.xyz to receive more, more of me. Okay, so, or more of my guidance, I should say. Anyway, yeah, I will see you guys again soon. Until next time, be well.